1993. A man is about to walk into a Denny's and pitch an idea that will accidentally create a $4 trillion company. The company is NVIDIA. Most people think they know this story. A gaming company makes graphics cards, then pivots to AI and prints money, right? Wrong. The real story is so much stranger. NVIDIA's rise to becoming one of the most valuable companies on Earth was not a pivot at all. It was an accident that took 30 years to pay off. So let's go back to that Denny's. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preem are the three guys meeting there. They are all veterans from Sun Microsystems and other Silicon Valley companies, and they have this wild idea to make chips that process graphics faster than anything on the market. But here's what nobody tells you. Their first product, the NV1, released in 1995, was a complete disaster. It was designed for quadrilateral rendering, which sounds impressive until you realize the entire gaming industry had already standardized on triangles. NVIDIA bet the farm on the wrong shape. They almost died right there. Jensen had to go back to investors and admit they'd built the wrong thing. But instead of giving up, they completely rewrote their architecture in 6 months. They called it Riva 128, and it saved the company. By 1999, they'd gone public at $12 a share. If you'd bought 1,000 shares, then for $12,000, those shares would be worth about $130 million today. But going public was just the beginning, because NVIDIA was about to walk into a war. By the early 2000s, the graphics card market was heating up. NVIDIA's main competitor was ATI, later acquired by AMD in 2006 for $5.4 billion. For nearly a decade, these two companies were locked in an arms race that completely transformed gaming. Every 6 months, one company would release a new card that was faster, hotter, more powerful. NVIDIA released the GeForce 256 in 1999, the first GPU to really handle complex three-dimensional games smoothly. AMD fired back with the Radeon series. In 2006, NVIDIA made a move that changed everything. They released CUDA, which stands for Compute Unified Device Architecture. CUDA opened a new path, a programming platform that let developers use NVIDIA GPU hardware for general-purpose computing, not just graphics. Game developers largely ignored it, but researchers and scientists saw something else. Suddenly you could use those gaming chips to run complex calculations and massive parallel processing tasks that would normally require supercomputers. AMD did not build something like CUDA. This was the moment NVIDIA accidentally positioned themselves to dominate AI, a decade before anyone cared, but they did not know it yet. At the time, they were still fighting AMD for gaming supremacy. The GeForce GTX series dominated the high-end market. NVIDIA's revenue reached $5 billion by 2011. AMD kept fighting, but NVIDIA was pulling ahead in market share. Then in 2016, something shifted. NVIDIA released the GTX 10 series and cryptocurrency miners lost their minds. Bitcoin and Ethereum mining was exploding and graphics processing units were perfect for it. NVIDIA's stock went from $30 to nearly $300 in 2 years. Revenue doubled. They could not manufacture cards fast enough. But then the crypto bubble burst in 2018. They had overproduced. Their stock crashed 40% in a month. Gamers were furious because prices were all over the place. Except NVIDIA had been quietly investing in something else the whole time. Remember CUDA? By 2012, researchers at the University of Toronto had used NVIDIA GPU-S to build AlexNet, a neural network that could recognize images better than any system ever built, and it ran on NVIDIA hardware. Suddenly, every AI researcher on Earth wanted NVIDIA GPU-S. Google, Facebook, and Amazon all started buying these cards in bulk for training AI models. NVIDIA saw this and made a massive bet. They started designing chips specifically for AI workloads. In 2016, they announced the Tesla P100, a card built entirely for data centers and AI training. It cost $7,000. Jensen Huang stood on the stage and said they were no longer just a graphics company, they were an AI computing company. Most people thought he was crazy, but NVIDIA went all in. They spent billions on research and development, $2.3 billion in 2017, nearly $4 billion a year by 2020. They built specialized AI chips like the A100 and the H100, data center behemoths that cost tens of thousands of dollars each. And when ChatGPT launched in November 2022 and broke the internet, every single company on Earth suddenly needed these chips. OpenAI's GPT models were trained on NVIDIA hardware, Google's AI, NVIDIA, Meta's Llama, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, every AI startup, they all needed H100 chips. And NVIDIA had basically a monopoly. AMD was years behind. Intel tried and failed because AI training requires so much parallel processing you could not just use regular computer chips. You needed GPUs. NVIDIA's revenue went from $27 billion in 2022 to $60 billion in 2024. Their market cap crossed $3 trillion. Jensen Huang became one of the richest people alive. But this success came with serious controversy. In 2024, reports emerged that NVIDIA was selling advanced chips to China through intermediaries, potentially violating US export controls. The government had restricted sales of high-end AI chips to China, worried about military applications. NVIDIA designed workaround chips that were slightly less powerful, but still profitable. Critics said the company was prioritizing profit over national security. There were also complaints from customers. Companies trying to buy H100 chips faced waiting lists stretching months. NVIDIA was accused of playing favorites, creating artificial scarcity to drive up prices. One H100 chip that cost NVIDIA maybe $3,000 to make was selling for $40,000. Profit margins on AI chips were reportedly over 75%. Some called it price gouging. And then there is the environmental question. Training large AI models uses enormous amounts of electricity. Some estimates say training GPT-4 used as much power as a small city for several months. NVIDIA's chips are at the center of this. Critics argue NVIDIA is enabling an unsustainable technology boom. NVIDIA says they are investing in more efficient chip designs and that AI will ultimately solve more problems than it creates. So where does this leave us? NVIDIA is betting everything on AI continuing to grow. They are building even more powerful chips. The Blackwell architecture, announced in 2024, promises another massive leap in performance. They are projecting AI could become a multi-trillion-dollar industry within the next decade, and if they are right, NVIDIA is positioned to capture a huge chunk of that. But there is risk. If AI hype cools down, if regulations tighten, or if competitors catch up, NVIDIA could face a reckoning. The company that almost died because it bet on the wrong shape in 1995 is now shaping the future of intelligence itself. From a Denny's in San Jose to $3 trillion in market value.